What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. It is, if you're watching live with us on YouTube, Thursday, January 20th. If you're listening to the podcast, it might very well be Friday, January 21st. This is the divisional round best bets and really just picks show. Joining me, and by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Hit that tell us your best bet for the weekend in the comments. Make sure to subscribe. If you subscribe and press the bell, the little bell button, you'll get alerts when we go live. If you're listening and happen to be listening on Spotify, they've added a rating system. Leave us a 5-star rating. Joining me to break down the weekend's worth of games. Actually, before I do that, I'll do a little read real quick. This weekend on CBS, the NFL Divisional Round presented by Intuit TurboTax Live begins Saturday at 4:30 Eastern with Joe Burrow and the Red Hot Bengals heading to Tennessee for a meeting with the top-seeded Titans. Then on Sunday at 6:30 Eastern, it's a highly anticipated rematch for the ages when Josh Allen and the unstoppable Bills offense take on the equally unstoppable Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. We'll get you set for both games on the NFL Today, the NFL Divisional Round presented by Intuit TurboTax Live this weekend on CBS. We'll break down both of those games and the two other ones, of course. Joining me to do so, Pete Prisco and RJ White. What's up, fellas?
How's it going?
What's up, boys? Bad week for me.
Not a great week. You had 6 bets. And you went 2 and 4.
All the games.
RJ went 1 and 3. Our parlay lost. I went 3 and 1. Good week for you, boy. I should have gone.
It's too bad you can't get back into the race. Oh, wait.
Well, as you are well aware, we're restarting.
I wasn't well aware.
Standings.
I wasn't well aware.
RJ, as well, I guess Debo's the only neutral third party here. We did talk about this. We talked about resetting the standings.
Yeah, because we talked about, are we going to do the same just regular pick segment? Or are we going to do something different?
Well, we talked about that, but we never talked about resetting the standings.
Yeah,
and once we decided to continue to go with the picks, there was no reason to reset the standings.
Well, that was part of the conversation. Was we were going to reset the standings anyway, and then when we just said we're going to do these picks.
No, so basically, Brinson reset the playoffs so he'd have a chance to win something.
Look, Pete, I would love for Brinson to be buried at the bottom of the standings all year long. So I don't have any bias here, like he said.
You don't have any bias. Are you saying like
right.
I said? Yeah.
Right. Resetting is something we've done in the past with playoff contests and.
Yeah, because we never picked the games. We always had different Remember, we took amount of money and broke it up, so it was different. I don't know. Look. The bottom line is it's somewhere, some way. This is Brinson's little calculation that to look better when he had a crap year.
Just beat him. He had one good week.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying, but okay, I have the most wins of all of us. RJ has the best record by a bit, and Brinson's about 10 games behind. And now RJ will win the regular season. Brinson might win the playoffs, and I don't win squadouche.
Well, the 49ers didn't win squadouche in the regular season either, and they still got a shot to win the Super Bowl.
I think we should have played. I would rather have played it out. That's what me and Brady agreed to do on our picks.
Well, good. Then you get both. You get to do both.
Yeah. No, this is all Brinson calculation. I know how it is. I can tell by his face. He had no chance. He was dead and buried.
I had nothing to do with this.
Nobody cares about who wins the playoff contest anyway. We're talking about 100 picks in the regular season. That's what we're going to carry over and talk about next year anyway. So it's not like it matters a great.
Says RJ who won.
Deal. Yeah, and you won the year before, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and you were the king. We didn't really care about who won the playoff competition last year. We cared about you winning the regular season.
Well, we should have had who won the whole thing. That's what we should do every year.
Well, I wouldn't make this the same type of picks. In last week I'm throwing in these 3 props. I probably would have stuck to spreads and just went with the Bengals pick because it moved against me and I didn't want to put him in. But I was kind of forced some things, going Mac Jones under passing total and those type of things to switch it up since we're such a limited, a slate of games that we're picking here. Wanted to give people something different than just going like, okay, I'm going to sit on my lead and make one pick. I'm going to pick my Tampa Bay pick, which lost. So
well, I mean, maybe even the thing we should have done is do like I don't know. We've done something where it's like you have to, everybody has to pick 2 props and 2 against total. I don't know. I mean, it's too late because we've already gone through wildcard weekend, but I guess we could have been a little more creative.
Or just pick the games. If you like one game, you pick one game. If you like 4 games, you pick 4 games.
I liked 4 games and I got 3 of them right. Oh, and the only one I lost is the stupid Eagles pick I tailed y'all on. I didn't like the Eagles. What was I thinking?
Yeah, well, you also were the guys who were in the Raiders game that were throwing shots in that should have scored at the end of the game, and you would have lost that one too. So I mean, you can do that all the way around the block.
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm not saying that like the Eagles should have. I'm saying that I didn't like the Eagles. I mean, I like the Buccaneers, and then the other 2 that I missed on over the weekend on the site were this is Steelers and Patriots. I mean, it just fell into some narrative crap with Belichick and Big Ben. When it's very plain to see that the Bills and the Chiefs were the better teams, and knew that going in.
Yeah, the Steelers pick was a terrible pick. I had them too, and the Eagles pick was awful. Bad. I had them too.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's yeah, let's dive into these games because they are. The wild card round was not. Every time I did radio over the past week, the first question was like, "There wasn't a great weekend in terms of games." I mean, I thought it was fine. There's some blowouts, but I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't a wild card weekend, I guess you could say. But it does what it does when you have sort of a down wild card weekend where the better teams just dominate. It does set up really good matchups in the divisional round, and that's what we've got this week. Starts with Bengals at Titans. Titans minus 3.5. Over under 47, up to 47.5. The over has been ticking up here. This line opened at Titans minus 2.5 and quickly crossed a key number, which is a little terrifying if you are a Bengals fan, Pete.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, I saw somewhere where this is the tightest spread for the 4 games since what, 1990 something?
1990 something? Really? Wow. I hadn't seen that.
I don't know. Yeah. See, because they're real tight usually there's a 10 or 11 pointer and a set, nothing.
Yeah, usually there's one. Well, usually what happens is wild card weekend's crazy.
Right.
Somebody sneaks in. Like if the Steelers had beaten the Chiefs, and I guess the Steelers would be at the Titans, but that line would still be like 8 or 9 probably.
Yeah, so it sets up a good weekend. This game, this is a tough game for me, but the more I
think this is the hardest game to pick on the whole slate.
Well, I thought so, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought, no, it's not. And here's why. You know how I'm a big Bengals backer. I mean, I think Joe Burrow, I picked them to win 1 in the next, when he was drafted, 1 in 10. They said 2, but I'll say 1. And I still think that's going to happen. They're a little ahead of schedule. But I'm worried about their offensive line against that pass rush. They did a decent job last week, solid job. But, Isaiah Prince is bad at right tackle. He had issues with Crosby. He's going to have issues with their pass rush here. I think the interior pass rush could be a problem as well. And on the other side, no Ogunjobi in the middle of that line is a problem. And he's one of their better run defenders. They're going to run on that. And I think that's going to be an issue. So I'm going to lean to the Titans here as a best bet, minus 3.5. And I just think this is the first time where we don't know what Henry's going to be, but he's going to be back. But this is the first time this group has been together in a long time. And so I'm going to take the Titans to ruin the Bengals season and win by the 3.5. I'll take Tennessee.
And the rush offense hasn't fallen apart without Henry. They've actually been pretty effective. And so getting him back in any sense is huge. It takes them from being a pretty good rush offense to potentially an elite one again. Talk about the Ogunjobi injury. The Cincinnati pressure rate drops from 35% when he's on the field to 26% when he's off. That is a massive drop. That takes him from being, I believe our research packet said, the second, but if you compare it to like a team's full game or full season numbers, that 35% would be second in the league. 26% would be 30th in the league. So that's kind of the context of those numbers. That's 30,
35 when he's on.
35 when he's on, which ranks second, and 26 when he's off, which ranks 30th. So that's a big problem. If you're not getting pressure on Ryan Tannehill, he's going to carve you up. Even if he gets into those 3rd and long situations, that's where he excels. And if you're not able to pressure him on 3rd and long, then good night. He's picking up first downs. And that Tennessee defense can get pressure without blitzing, like Pete was talking about. They have a great rush defense, also 4th in yards per rush. Means they can put Cincinnati in along the 3rd and longs and then get that pressure. Tennessee is 11-1 this season when they don't commit 3+ turnovers. So all you got to do is protect the ball, and you're going to advance in the playoffs here. And I think that game game plan's much easier with Henry leading the way versus a beat-up defense now that he's back. Tennessee's had 8 wins versus teams with winning records this year. That's the most all-time in 1 year. And Vrabel, I know Brinson's probably going to cite this stat because everybody's been talking about it. Vrabel is 8-0 straight up and against the spread all time with at least 8 days of rest between games. And so this guy knows how to prepare when he's had extra time. I know he didn't know his opponent here, but that's a big deal here. So getting only 3.5, I was hoping it popped down to 3 all week, and it hasn't. So since we're locked in at 3.5, I'm making Tennessee minus 3.5 the best bet on my end as well.
Yeah, I'm sort of with Pete here, and like in the sense that I have look, Pete, like this is about as good a setup for the Bengals as you could ask for in terms of Joe Burrow trying to make a Super Bowl run, because like the Titans are a very good team, but if you can get into the AFC playoffs and host the Raiders, or a Raiders team that we didn't think had really a lot of business being in the postseason, and then you can have a path set up where your next game is on the road, and it's 4 hours from home, and you should be a lot of Bengals fans in Nissan Stadium. And then you can also only have to play one of the Bills or Chiefs. That is right. Isn't that about as good a setup as you can get in the AFC? I mean, Belichick, only one of Allen or Mahomes. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, and so I want this Bengals thing to happen. I want the Bengals to make a run. My only argument, however, for the Bengals beating the Titans is basically pictures of Joe Burrow in crazy glasses at a press conference and like not wanting to question Joe Burrow in a big game. He's now 7-0, 3,000 plus passing yards, as well as 31 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions in quote unquote must-win games dating back to LSU. At the same time, the Ogunjobi injury plus the other injuries on the interior of the defensive line plays right into what the Titans want to do. They are it's not exotic smash mouth, although that team said that trademark, by the way. But it's going to be, if Derrick Henry is 75% of Derrick Henry and Donta Foreman plays like he's been playing, it's going to be, the Bengals are going to be forced to throw the ball a ton trying to play catch up. The Tennessee defensive line, very good. Now, certainly much better than it's been in years past. And it's just a problem. It's as good as, even though it's a good path, it's a bad matchup given the injuries that the Bengals have dealt with. I like the over a lot here. And I really want to take the Bengals, but I think Tennessee is probably the play. So we can add, I'll just go Tennessee as the best bet, and we can add, put that in the parlay.
Jeffrey Simmons could wreck this game.
Yeah. I mean, he is an absolute animal.
That's a mismatch on the inside with those guys. That's a big mismatch.
And Burrow moves really well in the pocket, but I do think there is something to the Vrabel stat. I don't know about the 8 days rest or whatever, but he's never lost off the bye. He's never failed to cover when he's at a bye. He's just a really good underrated coach, and he's going to have his guys prepared. What's that?
Yeah, they're rested.
Yeah, rested. It's just one of those situations where they're rested and they're healthier than the Bengals are right now. And the Bengals, the reason I like the over is I think you'll see Joe Burrow throw the ball 60 times, and they're going to get loose on some of these. Tennessee secondary a little vulnerable. So, but we can take Tennessee minus 3.5 as the first leg of our parlay, and we can move over to the Saturday night game. The 49ers at the Packers. Packers minus 6 with an over-under of 47. Lots of key injuries here for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo is dealing with a shoulder strain as well as his hand injury. I think we kind of expect him to play. Wouldn't be surprised at all if we see some Trey Lance packages, though. And Nick Bosa in concussion protocol. Fred Warner suffered an ankle sprain against the Cowboys. Blanked there for a second. You can see it's +6, minus 115. I think all three of those guys will end up playing. Pete, do you like the 49ers or the Packers here?
I love the 49ers last week. I even said they would win that game outright, take them on the money line. That was one of my best picks. That's one of the only picks I had last week that was worth a damn. I think they're a physical, tough matchup for Green Bay. But I think this is a bad spot for the 49ers. You mentioned the injuries. Fred Warner, if he can't be himself, that's a big miss in the middle of that defense. I love the fact that they'll play, run the football, they'll control the clock. I get it. But the Packers are getting guys back. And I'm a big believer. You block the 49ers, you beat the 49ers. And the Cowboys didn't block them last week. You know, the Rams didn't block them 2 weeks ago. They dominated that Rams line. They dominated the Cowboys line last week. The Packers got Bakhtiari back. That's enormous. Billy Turner back. That's enormous. They're going to be, and they've been solid on the offensive line, even though they haven't, had their players. In fact, I voted for Stefanovic, the offensive line coach, as the assistant coach of the year. I think he's done a magnificent job. And so when you look at this, I think they're going to block them. And I think that secondary is vulnerable. I know the 49ers are going to move the ball on the ground because the Packers have troubles at times. But they're getting guys back on defense as well with Alexander and Smith. I think the Packers – I'm not picking them as a best bet, but I think the Packers will cover this number and move on to the championship game.
Yeah, Green Bay had a crucial week to get healthy here, especially on the O-line. Like you said, Josh Myers, I think, is back too.
Myers too, yeah.
At center, and the defensive, they're getting Jair Alexander healthy. Preston Smith, I think, will be back. So it's a big deal there for the Packers. And San Fran can control the clock with the running game, but the thing is, even with these offensive line injuries, Green Bay has the highest average time of possession on offensive drives with like 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So like Rodgers is just staying on the field and keeping opposing offenses off the field. So if you're able to do that and turn that into points, I think San Fran, gets out of their game plan pretty quickly, and they have to scramble and try to catch up, and it could be a blowout. So I'm not gonna at 6. I'm not gonna put Packers in as a best bet. Green Bay edged out San Francisco in the first meeting. That was a different San Francisco rush attack. Trey Sermon was the RB1 in that game. Debo had 2 carries for 0 yards. And San Fran actually fell behind 17-0 in that game and showed tenacity battling back, take a fourth quarter lead. Much different here with a quarterback in 2-degree temperature, whatever it's going to be, nursing those injuries. If they fall behind, I don't think he'll be able to come back in this one. So I would lean to the Packers here. I just think that they're playing too well, have the better quarterback. They're at home. They have the better coach, I think, after what we saw last week with Shanahan. So if San Fran falls behind this time, I think Green Bay runs away with it and covers with ease. So I would lean to the Packers. Not going to play them. My best bet in this game is Eli Mitchell going under 75.5 rushing yards. He had 96 yards last week, but San Fran played from ahead the entire game, and that's unlikely here. I think he had like 27 carries also. His 4 games well under this total of 75.5 this year featured 3 losses. So if they're going to lose this game, you got to figure good chance that he's going to be under this number too. And even though Green Bay's 30th in yards per rush allowed, they see the 4th fewest rushes because Rodgers controls the clock, like I said, with that average time of drive. So I just don't think the volume is going to be there for him to get over this number, even if he has a decent day running the ball average-wise, because I don't think he's getting to that 20 carry level that he's been at the last several weeks. So that's going to be my best bet for this game, Mitchell going under his rushing total.
I have the 49ers as the best bet, and I fully acknowledge that if the game script gets to where if it gets to where RJ's describing, where the Packers are up double digits and the 49ers are forced to change their offense and throw the football a bunch, that it will be a big time problem for the 49ers. I mean, if Jimmy Garoppolo has to throw the ball 30 plus times in this game, then it probably means that the Packers are blowing out the 49ers and that they blocked them and got downhill on them. The Joey Bosa thing and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner are massive. I expect both to play. But I mean, if for some reason they didn't, that would drastically change my outlook on San Francisco here. But I do like the Niners getting 6 points. I think it will move back closer to 5 because of those, once we find out that Bosa and Warner are in. And then certainly, if Garoppolo is out for any reason, this could take off past 7. Just because Trey Lance, rookie quarterback that Kyle Shanahan wasn't willing to play much in the regular season, suddenly starting his first career playoff game in Lambeau. I think we'll see some Trey Lance packages though, just because you can run on the Packers. And I'm going to give the edge here to Kyle Shanahan over Matt LaFleur, as good as LaFleur has been, because Shanahan's taking care of business against him most of the time, with the exception being this regular season. I like the 49ers. I think the 49ers are live to win the game, and I love them getting 6. I'm obviously a 49ers honk, but look, it's I don't think it's a great matchup for Green Bay, but it's also, a tough spot for San Francisco as well, going in there and having to play in that weather against this talented of a football team in the Packers. All right. Next up, Rams at Buccaneers. The Buccaneers -3. Have seen this get down to under to 2.5 in some spots. Over under 48.5. A revenge spot for Tom Brady, who always finds his way into revenge spots, Pete.
I'm going to use this game a couple different ways. Yeah. You don't need the points here because I think the Rams are going to win the game. But I'm going to, yeah. And here's why I'm using it a couple different ways. I'm taking the Rams as one of my best bets. I think their defense will dominate the Bucs offensive line. And people will say, well, wow, that's a great offensive line. It wasn't last week. They were awful. And I'm not just talking about Josh Wells, who went in for Wirfs. And by the way, when Wirfs came back into the game, he gave up a pressure. It was a sack, combo sack. He couldn't stand on his leg. And even if he plays this week, it's going to be a problem. If Wells plays, it's a giant problem. But the interiors where the problems were. Look, Ali Marpet's a really good player. Ryan Jensen's a really good player. He played banged up a little bit last week. They were bad last week. Kappa was bad. And I think they're going to be able to pressure Tom Brady. And where does he go with the football? Mike Evans, maybe you put Jalen Ramsey on him a lot. And then where's he go? Gronk, you double him on the inside, then where's he go? I think there's a problem for Tom Brady in this game. And I think it's one of those games, I call them the ghost games, where he sees them and he starts seeing them and he sees more of them and then he starts getting hit. He's not going to look like Tom Brady. I think the Rams are that team that gets hot at the right time, makes their little playoff run. I'm going to take the Rams in this one to win the game. I'm taking them as a best bet, and I'm also taking them as part of the teaser. The reason I'm teasing them as part of it is because I thought they were the best teaser to get that number, because I like the other team I'm teasing with as a teaser play more so than as a team I think will cover that number. So I'm taking the Rams as a teaser play, first half, and also as a best bet.
What's your confidence level in teasing the Packers down and the Packers winning that game?
Yeah, I would. That was one I considered as well. I consider that one as well. 6 down the pick.
To pick them, yeah. That's the only thing because I was looking at the last game that we're going to talk about as a potential teaser leg, but I didn't want to do the 6 down to pick them. I'd rather just play them separately and play money line parlay something with something.
What about a Rams-Bills Packers 10-point teaser? I know you're going through 0 with the Packers, and that's frowned upon, but you get the Packers +4.
I wouldn't, but I don't
like going through the number when you.
Yeah, nobody likes going through 0. I'm just saying you would get the Packers on a key number on the other side, and to get Rams +13 and Bills plus double digits.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe the 49ers roll. I mean, that would be your only, or the Bucs just blast the Rams. I think either one of those would be surprising.
Or the Josh Allen offense turns back into a pumpkin at the worst time. For this game, I went Bucs -3 as a best bet. I'm on the opposite side of Pete. I understand what he's saying about the offensive line issues. I think the Rams offensive line could have some issues. Andrew Whitworth is hurt as well. And, if you start getting pressure on Matt Stafford, I have a lot less confidence in him holding up against pressure than Tom Brady, who's seen this time and again. The Rams offense started to run the ball more the last few weeks, but Tampa Bay's rush defense showed up against Philly. Getting healthier, I think they're going to play well here. Stafford didn't have to do much in that win over Arizona, 17 pass attempts. Not going to be the case here unless, Brady is under siege the whole game like Pete thinks, and the Bucs just aren't able to score points. Tampa in the first meeting had Cockrell and Delaney playing 80% of the defensive snaps at cornerback in that game. They're playing special teams now. They're barely ever on the field for defensive snaps. I think it's a big deal, especially if they get Sean Murphy Bunting back. He was able to practice limited fashion all week last week, didn't play. If he ramps up and is able to play in this game, then that makes them a little more whole in the secondary. And that Rams offense, Rams pass rush is a problem for the banged up Tampa Bay offensive line, like you said. But I think Brady, I give him a better chance of handling that than most people. And if you're going to talk about which quarterback is more likely to make a dumb game-changing mistake, I think it's got to be Stafford throwing a pick on his side of the field. So I want to play the 2.5. I was hoping for this podcast it would be 2.5. By the time we recorded, I had been holding out hope, or because it looked like it wanted to tip to 2.5 before I put it in on Sportsline, but finally got to the point where I had to get it in. So I put it in at 3 + 100. I like Tampa at 3 + 100, but ideally wait on that one. See if you can get 2.5. I would also lean to playing Stafford's over half interception at -135 and Mike Evans over 69.5 receiving yards. I think he had a big day against that Rams defense in the first meeting. 16 receivers have topped 70 yards against him. I don't think that's a huge number against this Rams defense. So I would go over on Evans as well.
Yeah, and I think there'll be Evans's number will have baked into it the notion that he'll be dealing with Jalen Ramsey all day, but Ramsey hasn't been traveling, so he
plays in the slot as much as anywhere, which is weird.
Right. So in other words, Evans is probably going to get I mean, we'll see. I mean, clearly these teams can make adjustments both defensively and offensively in terms of how they operate with Evans and Ramsey. But I mean, there's going to be some chess maneuvering there. One would think. Evans is.
If I was Raheem Morris, I would put Ramsey on Mike Evans because the big corners usually love matching up with the big receivers. They hate the little shifty ones. And I would double Gronk. And then I tell him, go ahead and beat me wherever else you want to beat me. That's what I would do.
Sure.
Where's he going? Where's he going if he does that?
Running backs. It's a Gio Bernard 12 catch type of day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you get to that, that's to your advantage.
Yeah, I think the Rams would be okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Leonard Fournette's back. Likely, he tweeted that he's back for this game too. I mean, that's a difference maker as well. I mean, I know it's Leonard Fournette, it's a running back, but playoff Lenny was pretty huge for that Bucs team down the stretch last year.
Right.
Yeah, I think if you're throwing to the backs, I think that's to your advantage. If you're the
well, Pete, considering their injuries at receiver, what do you think about splitting Bernard out there as like kind of a tiny little slot receiver and just kind of making him a receiver for this game if Fournette is back?
Nah, I wouldn't do that.
You don't want to do it?
I'd get those other guys involved. I mean, Scotty Miller and guys got to. I mean, he's made some plays over his career. You got to get those guys involved. Johnson, you got to get them involved. But again, if they beat me, they beat me. If the running backs beat me, they beat me. But I'm going to take away Evans and I'm going to take away Gronk, and then let's see what Brady does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is that the Rams are probably thinking the same thing, and the Bucs are probably thinking that the Rams are thinking the same thing. So that's the chess match of it. I think the injuries here that are huge are we talked about the offensive line for Tampa. Ryan Jensen. At center, he came back and is just a nasty, tough dude. So you would think that he's going to play. And clearly Tristan Wirfs matters, especially with, those two guys are so important because you have Von Miller and you have Aaron Donald, right? And like that's, if you're a weekend at those spots, you're going to get, those are pressure points for Tom Brady. And if, look, the interior matchup
is terrible. If he's playing, that's a major problem for the Bucs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the thing is like, if, we've said for years, how do you beat Tom Brady? You get him off his spot and you get him, get pressure up the middle. Like that's going to be the sort of the crux of this matchup. And I've got the Rams as the best bet. I don't think anybody should be surprised by that. Definitely want to get the +3 if you can. I will. By the way, I think I took the Niners on the money line and on the spread last week, so I really should be 4-1, 4.25-1.
We're not giving best bets for money
line.
We're not playing
that one either.
I listed both as a best bet. How's that not a best bet? Yes, I did.
Do you want one unit on
the podcast?
Do you want one unit on your best bet then? Because I mean, the reason we don't play those money lines is because I'll take the Packers as a best bet here. But they're -210 on the money line. Right. So I don't want to be paid out plus money.
I just said they were going to win outright.
So did I.
But you didn't list it as a best bet.
No, you're nice try, Brinson. You're doing anything and everything to try and make yourself look better. You were garbage all season long.
I got the Rams as a best bet as well. I mean, I'm tempted to just jump on that Rams-Bills teaser that Pete threw out. I kind of like that. Getting those two teams over a touchdown. That's a pretty good one. I think it's look, wouldn't be surprised at all if the Buccaneers won the game. It's Tom Brady. It's the defending Super Bowl champions. They have a really good coaching staff. They have tons of offensive weapons despite all the injuries, and they've got players on defense. Like Levante David makes a huge difference when he's back. They have guys that they have a defense that can put it on you pretty quick. But I just have this feeling about the Rams. I like this Rams team. I think Stafford.
There you go. Here's a question for you: 5 biggest stars in the game.
I mean, Brady won.
In order.
Do you want like football stars or like famous stars?
Football stars. Football talent.
Okay, Brady won. Or I guess you go Aaron Donald won probably. Right?
He's better than his. Is he better? Well, Brady. We'll get Brady 1. Let's say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Donald 2.
It's the social team flips it.
Ramsey 3.
Ramsey 3. Miller 4. Who 4?
Cup 4.
Oh, Cup 4. Yeah, Von Miller's been playing really well the last few weeks.
So who's 5? That's what I mean. So would you go Miller? Would you go?
It's either Miller, Stafford, or Gronk, right? Am I missing somebody? Am I missing?
I mean, David.
David would work.
Wirfs, if he's healthy.
Whitworth.
No, Wirfs is better than Whitworth.
If Wirfs is like he is with his ankle, he ain't.
But the point is that you can make a case that if you threw Stafford in there, you can make a case that 4 of the best 5 players in the game are Rams.
If the Bucs don't have I mean, this sounds kind of stupid, but if the Bucs don't have Tom Brady on this team, I think it's like a pick 'em. I mean, it's just like, do you really want to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs?
Right.
And I do for some reason.
I think the Rams are getting going at the right time.
I agree completely. Cam Akers looked fantastic last week. I mean, he's a difference maker. I know you can't run against his team. I think Stafford, all the talk all week last week, Stafford, the pressure that he's facing for the playoff game. And he was perfectly like, I didn't buy into the idea that Stafford deserves to be categorized with Y.A. Tittle and Andy Dalton. I mean, first of all, Y.A. Tittle lost 4 championship games, I think, or 1 regular playoff game and like 3 championship games. Stafford went to the playoffs with the Lions. The Lions are terrible. The Lions aren't supposed to be in the playoffs. And so I always thought it was a little bit different. Anyway, they won the game. I think they get another win here. Love the Rams +3. I think that they'll win as well. Next up, the crown jewel of CBS Sports postseason. Oh, you know what? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the crown jewel of the CBS Sports postseason programming. Next. The Bills at the Chiefs. Chiefs -2, over under 54.5. What a freaking just down to 1.5. Wow. What a freaking whale of a matchup this is, Pete.
This is everything and anything that I love in football right here. The weather's supposed to be 45 and no conditions. It's fantastic. I love it. We're going to actually see football. No win games. Nothing deciding a game that shouldn't decide a game. We have 2 quarterbacks who are on fire, coming off enormous games. Both of them are stars. I love this. And look, the Bills have the #1 defense in the league. People discount that. #1, Leslie Frazier's done a great job with that defense. That defense in the offseason was retooled for this game. They won in the regular season there, and they retooled it for this game. The Chiefs played much better on offense last week than we've seen them in a long time. Defensively, though, leading into last week, now they had a good game last week, but leading into that, they had some issues. I think the better defense is at Buffalo. And so for that reason, I'm going to take the Bills to win this game outright. I picked them to win the Super Bowl. I'm sticking with it. I think what we saw last week was Josh Allen at his best. He's a star now. And this game, I know there's some talk of, well, he has a bad game after a good game. That's not going to be the case here. And what does Steve Spagnuolo love to do? He loves to blitz. What does he love to do? He loves to play man coverage. And when you play man coverage and you blitz, you turn your back to this guy. And that's just dangerous as can be. I think he's going to run the ball. I think he's going to throw for a lot of yards. I think this is going to be a fun game. I love the over in this game. It's one of my best bets. I think it's going to soar over. And as far as the Bills, I'm going to take them as the second half of my teaser. I'm going to take them plus the 7.5. So it'll be Rams plus the 9, Bills plus the 7.5 as the teaser. And I love the over in this game.
Well, you get them at 8 because we sent the lines out at 2, so you'll get them at 8. So why do you think the total's coming down then? Because you said you love the over, and it opened at 55, or was at 55 for a while. Now it's down to 53.5.
Oh,
so what do you think people are seeing to make that total drop?
I don't know. I don't understand it. This one I don't understand. The weather's great. I mean, look, it was supposed to be the other day. I looked, it was 45, right? 45 and sunny.
Right. Maybe it's people coming to their senses with the Buffalo defense being as good as you say they are. Maybe it's some of, apprehension with Josh Allen having another good game. Because what you said about the Chiefs defense being mediocre down the stretch and then putting together an awesome game last week, I think that kind of applies to the Buffalo offense as well. Josh Allen had some struggle games in there. They got it done. They ended up covering some games that they really didn't deserve to cover because he was not playing well in those games. But they came out and they looked awesome, as good as you possibly can against New England. And I think them looking that awesome might be baked into this line a little too much. I think this line probably should be 3. I'm making the Chiefs a best bet at -2. The Buffalo did dominate that first game against Kansas City. I don't think they're likely to go +4 in turnover rate again. I think Mahomes does a better job in this game, and I don't think Buffalo can generate as many turnovers. This is the worst matchup for not having Tre'Davious White. They survived without him in the second half of the season, but this kind of feels like the Bucs matchup where they allowed 488 yards in that game. They were getting their butts kicked, and they engineered a comeback, sent into overtime, ended up losing, but made it competitive at the end. So if the Chiefs offense is having that type of day, that Buffalo offense needs to be at its peak level as it was last week. So I just think there's a little more leeway for them that not to happen. Kansas City defense, they did struggle down the stretch, but they've been awesome at home. In home games since the Ingram edition, gave up 7 against Green Bay. That's the Jordan Love game. Throw that out. That doesn't really count. 9 against Dallas, 9 against the Raiders, 10 against the Steelers. Cheap 21 last week where they gave up 7 on that fumble recovery, which whatever. And then 14 at the very end of the game when they given them like no yards for and I know it's Pittsburgh, but they gave them no yards for the whole game. And then they gave up like 3 70-yard drives at the end of the game when it didn't matter. So those are some like limited offenses. I know you can talk about Vegas and Pittsburgh, whatever, but they did it to Dallas. I think they might be able to do it here. This game might be a little bit lower scoring than people think. And I just think the Chiefs are the better team. So I'll take them at home here at -2.
I'm trying to think through the logic on the under or the total coming down. I mean, this is a rematch, right? I mean, you've got the Bills, the Chiefs. The Bills are susceptible to the run. Maybe the Chiefs try and run. I think we expect to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. Maybe the Bills try and do some sort of the cover shell thing that thwarted Mahomes for a little bit, and then I'm just trying to think like how this sort of turns into a slower game. Maybe the bet is a live bet on the over. I know we can't do that for the podcast purposes, but let's say the game starts off a little bit slower, like we saw with Pittsburgh and KC, or even really with, I guess the Bills came out scorching against New England.
Well, in the first meeting, it was 10. There were 10 points scored in the first quarter, and they ended up with 58.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, just be thinking about that as a possibility if you're going to be live betting. Why do people think that Josh Allen is going to turn into a pumpkin?
Because he's been inconsistent all year. I mean, he had his best game last week, but it just, he hasn't looked like an MVP level quarterback this year. He looked like it last year, and he just hasn't been as good this year. It's been made up for in that Buffalo, team because that defense is playing so well, and the rushing attack has come on the last several weeks too, and that's going to help, I think, hide that a little bit. But I just don't think he's at the level of the top quarterbacks, the Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady type this year. He certainly could be there at his best, like he was last week. He is at that level, but he just hasn't consistently been there this year.
What's amazing though, RJ? You say that, and then you compare all his data, and it's almost identical to last year.
Right. I mean, he played a very easy schedule this year too.
37 to 36. His completion percentage went down this year by 6 points, which is significant. You're right in that area, but everything else is yards close. I mean, it's just yards per attempt is down a little bit, but I think it wasn't nearly. You're right. He had some games where he really struggled, and they struggled as an offense. But I think this is a better season than he gets credit for. I think
it was a good season. I'm not saying he was bad by any means. He wasn't MVP level, and that's what emerged last year. That's what people saw going forward. There's a perennial MVP candidate going forward, and he's just hasn't been in the conversation all year because he's had those games.
Yeah, like he was bad against Atlanta a couple weeks ago. That was terrible.
Right.
He was
terrible.
3 picks, terrible.
Yeah.
But in the 2 games leading into that, he threw 6 touchdown passes, 1 pick, and he was good against Carolina and New England in those 2 games. So, and it wasn't awful against Tampa when they lost to them. I mean, he threw 308, 2-1. Remember, they almost brought him back in the second half.
Yeah, and most of that came late.
Yeah,
right.
But there were some bad games and weird team, like Atlanta, weird game. Jacksonville, like you mentioned, bad game. Where else? He had a couple other bad ones. Houston, he only threw for 248 and 2. I mean, you're right. The opening game was the worst game.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost to the Steelers. It was terrible that day.
The Patrick Mahomes pretty good in the playoffs at home. He's got 1 interception. And wasn't a pick against was was the pick last week. It was the only interception he's ever thrown in the playoffs at home is last week against the Steelers. Wasn't that kind of fluky, or am I thinking wrong? That throw? I don't remember.
Which one? The one last week?
Yeah.
Wait, that was off somebody's hands, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't like a Mahomes made a bad decision. He's just really good at home in the playoffs. I mean, I do sort of wonder if not that the moment is too. I don't think the moment's too big for Josh Allen or anything like that. I mean, he had a monster game last week, but he has had like his playoff numbers are not. I mean, they're good, but they're not like I don't know. I just sort of wonder if there's a chance that the KC defense does show up here. I've been flipping and flopping back and forth on this game all week. I think I'm going to end up taking the Chiefs and maybe changing my pick, and I may for the sake of the podcast, I think I will make the. Actually, you know what? I'll just make the over a best bet, 53.5, because I'm not sure which side I like. I think I'm going to end up fighting with the Chiefs.
I know he had 5 last week, but he's got 10-1 in the postseason. It's not like he's been a disaster in the postseason.
No. He hadn't been bad. Over Bills Chiefs for me. I think it gets there.
See, here's why I think the over is a good play here, because it's not totally out of the question that somebody gets up 10-0.
Oh, if somebody gets a double-digit lead, it's on like Donkey Kong for point score.
Right.
Because all of a sudden your game script gets cranked up to pass heavy. Both secondaries are banged up. The safeties are really good for Buffalo, and obviously the Chiefs have some decent players in the back end too. But like if these offenses start throwing downfield and getting into like a back and forth, I think again that's why if you see a double-digit lead for one of these teams, and neither team's rushing attack is like that great, although Singletary's been very good and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the Chiefs have several guys. I would say if you see a double-digit lead or we get low scores early in that game, I think live over is probably a very good look. Nobody hit on the divisional round props last week. Most rushing yards was Elijah Mitchell with 96. Didn't have a single 100-yard rusher in the wild card weekend. Patrick Mahomes, 404 passing yards. The Bills were the highest scoring team. I thought Pete said the Bills were a good bet. Somebody said the Bills were a good bet. Maybe. And the Cardinals were the lowest scoring team. I thought we talked about them too, but whatever. This week, most passing yards, Tom Brady 4-1, Patrick Mahomes plus 450, Stafford plus 475, Aaron Rodgers 5-1, and Joe Burrow 5-1, Josh Allen 6-1, Jimmy G 11-1, Ryan Tannehill 12-1. Anything you like on that list, Pete?
I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers at 5-1. Yeah, I go back to my theory on that game. You block him, you beat him, you get big plays down the field. I'm going to take Rodgers. Just a hunch.
Okay. RJ.
The odds, I like the odds too.
Yeah, I think Ryan Tannehill doesn't deserve to be this far down the list, considering the injuries on the Cincy defensive side. I mean, he's the last place, and he's with Jimmy G, who's banged up. I don't think Jimmy G's throwing for more than Ryan Tannehill, and I think Ryan Tannehill
Jimmy G. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
And the next closest are half the odds of Ryan Tannehill. So I think he deserves to be closer to that mix. I think your best value is him, and just them they don't want to lean on Derrick Henry as much coming back from the injury, and he just puts up a 300+ yard day against a banged up defense. So I would go that route.
Yeah, I would say Tannehill is good value as well at 12-1, especially with Cincinnati. Like Cincinnati's just not going to like curl up and die and go away, just go away completely. I mean, Joe Burrow, they'll let Joe Burrow chunk it around and doesn't. I mean, you're not the Bengals will get some points in this game, so you might get Tannehill coming back, having to play in a shootout as well. 12-1 is kind of crazy for a game with I believe a total of what was it? Yeah, 47.5. So I mean, it's not the highest total, of course. I would say Josh Allen has some value there as well at 6-1.
Yeah, I was between Rodgers and Allen for me.
I mean, Allen is in a game with a 53.5, the highest total on the board, and you're getting a little more value than what you're getting from Mahomes. Obviously, with Allen, some of that the yardage equity could come via his legs, so you might not be quite as you might not get quite as many throws, but they got tons of weapons too. And if it's a shootout, Allen will be tossing the ball around. Next up, the highest scoring team. Or are we going rush yards? Sorry. Yep, we're going rush yards. Derrick Henry, 4.5-1 for most rush yards. Crazy. Elijah Mitchell, 4.5-1. Devin Singletary, 6.5-1. Joe Mixon, 9-1. Aaron Jones, 13-1. Cam Akers, 14-1. And Let's see. Some more. Sony Michelle 14-1, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, AJ Dillon 16-1. Josh Allen 20-1. I would say, and Leonard Fournette 25-1. Wow. Some of these are kind of juicy, man. What do you think, Pete?
I would take a shot on Fournette at 25-1.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think the Rams are a little defensive. If you want to get physical with them at times, I think you could push them around. So but that's not who Bruce Arians is.
Right.
Even so, I at 25-1, that's worth a flyer on Fournette.
And that's how you protect Brady. If you're worried about that pass rush, you run the ball and you make them have to play the run, all 60 minutes of that game. So I agree at those numbers. I would go Fournette as well. Allen was 25-1. I guess little actions coming in on him. I was going to pump him up as a candidate 25-1, but I think if you can get Fournette and he's active for that game, I'd probably go 25-1 as well. I just think a big rushing day from Josh Allen too. His over under rushing total is 53.5, and I would play the over on that. I think he gets to the 60 to 70 range. And if not a lot of running backs are having a huge rushing attack games, then maybe that's enough to win it.
I also think it's worth a stab on Dante Foreman right now at 30-1 because we don't know that Derrick Henry is playing. And if Derrick Henry doesn't play, like the Titans can beat the Bengals without Derrick Henry. He's just an added bonus for them. And Foreman,
they ran, like RJ said earlier, they've run without him.
That's what I'm saying. And look, what if they're like, Henry can't go? He wants to go, but he's got a steel plate in his foot and his legs look like toothpicks. And they're like, all right, so Dante Foreman's going to be our starter and he's going to get 30 carries against a banged up Bengals defensive line. 30-1 is good value there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire 40-1. I mean, I don't mind a little flyer on that if he's going to play. And then I think AJ Dillon 16-1 isn't a terrible bet either. If we assume that the Packers are capable of getting up on the 49ers, I think Dillon's the guy who's going to close the game out for him. And if he pops one or two off, all of a sudden, 16-1 is not bad value.
So which one you going with?
Why do you keep saying he has toothpick legs? He could still do his weightlifting.
They look smaller. Maybe they're always like that. I don't know. I'll go with Dante Foreman. I think if the Titans have a double-digit lead in the second half, it might not be Derrick Henry who they're leaning on. So I'll take Foreman at 30-1. I think there's a lot of outs there. Most receiving yards in divisional round down at the bottom there, Debo. Travis Kelce plus 425. Mike Evans plus 450. Devontae Adams is 8-1. I mean, okay. Cooper Kupp's 8.5-1. All right. Ja'Marr Chase 8.5-1. Tyreek Hill 13. What is happening here? What? Tyreek Hill's 13-1. Stephon Diggs 15-1. Deebo Samuel 18-1. AJ Brown 20-1. Ayuk and Dawson Knox 25-1. I mean,
I'll take Tyreek Hill at 13-1.
That's a weird one.
I'll take AJ Brown at 20-1 because I think Tannehill could have a good passing day, like I said, and he has time to throw. AJ Brown so dangerous. 20-1 seems like he should be closer to some of these other leaders than the Hill Diggs range. So I think 20-1 is solid value.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take Hill at 13-1. I think too. I mean, it's just double digits for Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, double digits.
And AJ Brown is crazy.
It really is.
I mean, I would just sprinkle on all three of those. I'll tell you what, just for the sake of being different, I'll take Stephon Diggs at 15-1. So Diggs, Hill, and AJ Brown. I think we all agree those are really good values. And
absolutely.
I mean, nothing wrong with sprinkling on all three of those.
Devontae right. Adams at 8-1 isn't bad value, and neither is Cooper Kupp at 8.5-1.
Yeah, I agree completely. Adams at 8-1 is wild. All right, let's go to highest scoring team. The Kansas City Chiefs check in at 3.5-1. The Bills plus 375. Packers 4-1. Bucks 5-1. Titans 6.5-1. Rams 9-1. Oh, the Bengals being disrespected here. What are they, Debo? I can't see them. So you can scroll down a little bit. Oh, there we go. Bengals 12-1 and Niners 14-1. Pete,
I'm going a little chalky. I'm going to take the Bills. I'm going a little chalky. I'll take that.
I mean, nothing wrong with taking the team with the 53.5 total.
Yeah, I'll take the Bills.
It's interesting because they're about even with the Chiefs as the top two teams. So I think the value is finding somewhere else to go. I'm going to stick with my pattern of taking Titans, thinking that they're better than people give them credit for off a week off. They could put up a big point total in that game. So 6.5-1, I think, is the way you want to go here for me.
Yeah. I would, the Rams are enticing at 9-1, but Sean McVay is more than willing to kick some field goals. Kick short field goals. So I don't know if I want to do that. I think the Titans are a very good value too. I'm going to say the Bengals. And just because I think they can win the game. There's 3.5 point spread. I mean, I know we all think Tennessee's going to win, but Bengals at 12-1. I mean, they can lob up some points pretty quickly. I agree with you that the Titans are good value, but I'll take the Bengals in this spot for the purposes of the podcast. The lowest scoring team, I would assume the Niners. Yep, plus 260 for the Niners. Sheesh. Bengals plus 375. Rams plus 425. Titans 6.5-1. Bucs 8.5-1. Packers 9-1. Bills and Chiefs both 11-1. Pete.
I'll take the odds and take the Bucs.
Ooh, yeah, I think the Bucs is a good one. 8.5-1. You got three elite. You got 3 elite defensive players on the other side, and banged up Bucs pass. Receivers and offensive line. Sure.
Figured you had to go that way with how you talked about that game earlier, and I think if you're right on that game, that's a great call there. It's a great value. I'm probably edging to the side of taking the Rams at plus 425. I think Stafford could have a struggle game on that side, and that game will be lower scoring than anyone expects. So I'll kind of just be on the other side of you on that one and go with 425 because I don't want to play the other 2 teams that are above them at those odds.
I will take the Buccaneers too. 8.5-1. My Rams. Hashtag my Rams. All right.
Rams.
RJ, do you have any futures for the people out there?
No, the thing I would look at is you can bet the Super Bowl right now, just AFC team versus NFC team. And what's interesting to me is that the NFC team is favored. And I think that kind of depends on the Packers getting there, I would say, because if the Bills or the Chiefs are in that game, I think they're just as good as about anyone. So if you can lay the money line on plus 100 on AFC team, I think you do that. And I think at worst case, that's probably about what it is when you're playing the Packers. Because if the Bills make it, I mean, they stormed through the Chiefs and then they won, the AFC championship, and everybody's going to love them. If the Chiefs do it, it's like, oh, here we go again with Patrick Mahomes. So either one of those teams getting there, they're going to be the hot team. So as long as it's not the Titans sneaking through, then I think you're kind of screwed there. So if you believe in the Titans, bet on them to win the AFC and then go to the Super Bowl. If you don't, I think playing the AFC team plus 100 is the way to go.
That's a good look because the Chiefs or the Bills are going to be. I'm trying to think the Chiefs or the Bills are probably -3 versus the Packers, right? Maybe -2. Pick them. Either way, you just have a bet on the Bills or the Chiefs then.
Right. I would think pick them at best because this line's telling you they think the Packers are going to get there because, they're easy favorites against the other teams. So either one of those. So I think this one's really representing the Packers getting there. And if the Packers get upset again, like they keep doing in the playoffs these last few years, then you just have a great value and you can play it back on the AFC team, the NFC team plus whatever once you get to the Super Bowl. And
then you got yourself a window to guarantee some kind of profit on that. That's a good call. So did you take the -1 or do the -120?
No, we're talking AFC team here. I'd go plus 100 on the money line.
Oh my God, I read that wrong. Oh, the AFC team is plus. Oh, holy Moses.
Right.
So you take the +1 or the plus 100?
The plus 100.
Okay, cool. All right, I like that too. That's a really good call. I'm going to see if my local has that set up. Might take a little dabble. RJ always thinking ahead, 2 or 3 steps ahead of the book. Pete,
how much have you paid your local? How much have you paid your local this year?
Probably about break even football season. I beat him up pretty bad in golf, but not great in football. The professional football championship odds, Pete. Anything entice you? Packers plus 375, Chiefs plus 4-1, Bills 5-1, Bucs 5.5-1, Rams 7.5-1, Titans 8.5-1. 49ers 11-1 and the Bengals 15-1.
I picked the Bills, so I take them at 575.
It's 5-1 for the Bills. That's not terrible value. You're probably. The Bills are probably 5-1. Maybe like 8-1 or something like that at one point during the season, anyway, right, RJ?
The other thing is that you look at value. RJ keeps talking about the Titans. You're talking about they win 2 home games and they're in the Super Bowl. Look, what are they? 8-1? Is that what it is?
8.5-1. Yeah, I think the play with the Titans is to take them the conference winner to win the AFC because that, like you said, winning 2 home games. So if you think they're winning this week anyway, they're going to have a tough matchup. They'll probably be the underdogs against either of those teams next week. But it can't be massive underdogs. They can't be like 3. It would probably be 1 at worst. So if you want to play them at plus 320 and have at least a little bit in the futures market over the next couple of weeks, I think that's fine playing the Titans, knowing that they're going to be at home the next 2 games.
So, I mean, absolute worst case. So let's say the Titans are minus 180 right now. And absolute worst case, they are what, plus 110 at home if they beat the Bengals at home against either the Bills or Chiefs, plus 125.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually looking at the numbers. I was putting numbers into Moneyline Parlay calculator, and I think I came out with expecting them to be like 3.5 point dogs in the Super Bowl. Basically, I gave them what the Bengals money line is this week, the plus 155 this week, the minus 180 on the Titans money line this week, and then you figure out what that middle number is, and it's got to be a decent amount up for them to be underdogs at home against the Chiefs or Bills. That you're not getting value in betting them on the Super Bowl. So I do think betting them on the Super Bowl is a pretty fine value considering what I think the money lines are going to be the next 3 weeks if they make it all the way through.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the money line thing. They would be to get what are the AFC odds are plus 320. I mean, I think even if they were plus, so I plugged in the Rams money line, which is plus 125 as 3-point dogs with the minus 120 juice, and then the Titans current money line. So that's total worst case, and that comes out to plus 250. Mm-hmm. So plus 320 is pretty good odds for the Titans then.
Yeah, you're expecting them to be, true odds, 4 then at home against the Chiefs or Bills, and I just think that's not giving this team any respect at all.
Yep, it's a good football team, and they can get downhill on you and rush the passer. So I agree with that. That's not a bad bet.
Even with skinny legs.
Even skinny little legs. I don't know what I'm doing. All right, that's it for the show.
You keep going all in on that, and you're not right about it. Stop it.
His legs just look small to me.
He's gonna come kick your butt someday.
I hope he doesn't. I love Derrick Henry. All right, that's it for the show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Smash the like button. Leave your best bet in the comments. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe, rate, and review. For Pete and RJ, I'm Brinson. We will see you guys later.